Do you want this? Maybe you don't want this in the shot though. Be nice to see my feet. I suppose one of the sort of most inspiring places that I lived was in North Nigeria, and their own pieces. So that, like this chair is kind of influenced on a sort of African symbolic art or furniture, and also the bicycles. You know, everybody used to run around on rally bikes, and then kind of working in the film industry and doing props. So coming back to the UK, I started off doing lots of set design and set dressing, props making, really sort of diverse stuff for the theatre, for film and TV, for films, short films, commercials, and music videos. Well, a friend of mine lives in Brighton, and I looked at what he was looking at. Wow, you can have a job, you know, building sets or designing, you know, working in the theatre, doing backdrops. It sounded amazing. And I went to RADA. I heard about they did a summer course there.
Well, I work in film, and an art director's job is to design sets.
Inroads to that industry, you've got to want it, and you've got to want it now, and you just got to say yes to everything. And that's subsequently what I did, and it led me in so many different directions to do like props and for sort of fringe theatre things, and then friends were making short films, and then somebody asked me to help them on a shoot, and then it just sort of one thing led to another. Well, I used to be a professional cyclist. I spent 4 years in Italy, a year in France, and a lot of time in Belgium and northern Spain, and just sort of living out of a suitcase for sort of 6 to 8 months a year. But that was a huge influence. Yeah, I mean, I used to stay in some incredible places, monasteries and brilliant hotels, and not very nice hotels, you know. The food, the way of life, the weather, the roads are incredible to ride on. It's just smooth, and you go up into the mountains. It's quite. I mean, a lot of the races you don't get a chance to really know where you are, but you're very aware of what's your surroundings. The first couple of years I'm staying in a town called Viareggio, and one of the most sort of like impressionable moments was being picked up at the airport by my manager and sponsor in his big Alfa, and he had opera music blaring away, and he was tailgating all the cars on the road and shouting and being really kind of flamboyant, and his name was Giancarlo, and his son was in my team, and I lived with them for a couple of years. Anyway, so we were bombing down the auto route, Autostrada, on our way to the bike shop in where is it, Forza del Marmi, Santini Bici. And there, so we arrive, and then there's my bike, you know, just sitting there. Beautiful, had silk tyres, Clement Crits, I think they were. It's the best bike I'd ever had, really, at that time. And it fitted perfectly, you know. But where we lived, and then we went back to the house with the family, and I was introduced to the whole family, and it turns out we were just down the road from del Lago, which is where Puccini is from, the composer. So having good food, good weather and opera is a good way to start living in Italy, I think. I kind of started doing, I was working for this record company, and I used to do a lot of their props and sets, because at the time there was the BBC doing Top of the Pops. So it was kind of like, that was like I think a real marker for record sales when they were going to release. So hopefully if they had somebody that could go on the BBC, then it would push the sales. So therefore I helped with kind of creating the kind of vibe, I guess, for some of the bands. And I did one thing which was really cool, which was for the Orb. Top 100 moments of the last century or something. A TV moment. From there I met lots of producers and directors and stuff, and started there, they would ask me to design their office, or they like my furniture, they want a conference table, or do work with people like Moby or Apex Twin. Well, Moby was a strange kind of guy. He's just an artist that flies in from America and then does the shoot, and then I don't know what happens to him. Didn't really engage with him that much. He was, or one of them, he had a sort of character where he was having a dream or something, and he had to get into the part. So he was very kind of distant, surrealist. So it was kind of influenced. The idea was like he was in another world, another planet, or he was in his own mind. And you had these performers who sort of lived in this kind of other world, and Moby was trapped. And then I'm working with him again. When I had my warehouse in East London, which I used to hire out as a film location. We did another Moby video there on the top floor, which was like he was doing this album, which was kind of like rock album. So traditionally him was like a dance DJ and was doing dance music and stuff, and then he did a sidestep and started doing more rock. And his one album he did animal rights. So I went to Smithfield Market, took loads of photographs of meat hanging in the market, and used that as a kind of inspiration to make all of these bodies hanging from the ceiling that he would eventually smash up, kind of like Rocky style. But they were made of plaster, and they were like bits of the female anatomy hanging from the ceiling. So it was a play on that, because he's a vegetarian. So I thought, well, it's really macabre the way animals are treated and just hung, and it's like they're nothing, like they're just bits of things that you manufacture. I did work with Pavarotti and Elton John, as well as getting a good performance out of the artists. Elton John and Pavarotti did this song, something Wild Horses, I think. A lot of Elton and him was shot against black, and then it was kind of superimposed with all this stuff that we did. Yeah, that was in New York. Yeah, that was quite funny actually, filming this show in New York, and we had, I don't know if you remember Huggy Bear from Starsky and Hutch, came on set and just sort of shouted to everybody, "I'm here!" like kind of to all the crew, and everybody sort of cheered. And I had this prop glass thing. It's like which I'd hired from this store in New York, and it was all bubble wrapped. And it was like, it looked like a football kind of bit twice the size of a football. And he comes in and he goes, "I'm here, everyone," and boots this prop, and it goes from one end of the studio to the other, and it's made of glass, and it just flew and just hit the ground and smashed like that. And everybody laughed. They all have an entourage of like 20 people. They're all very sweet. Interestingly enough, most artists that came to the studio had their parents with them. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of weird. And maybe an entourage. you know, they very much look after their, you know, Aaliyah, like especially Aaliyah, and there must have been about 20 sort of entourage with her, and KRS. Isaac Hayes, you know, he was just a very understated kind of guy. The various kind of celebrities, musicians, artists would come on and sort of say a little something, you know, kind of good PR for them, I guess, and keeps them in the public eye, and it made the show quite interesting. Flavour is R&B term, isn't it? And flavour with an A at the end. So the film I worked on with Julien Temple was the Dr. Feelgood, Oil City Confidential was the name. My kids love bikes and they're always breaking bikes. So, and then COVID came along. I like bikes too, so yeah, and I thought, well, what the hell am I going to do? I've still got to pay the rent on the studio, still got to pay the rates, all of that stuff. There's no help. So I thought, I know, I'll fix bikes. So we sent out next door kind of apps. A few friends put some adverts out, and suddenly I was like fixing 2 to 3 bikes a day for a few months over COVID, and buying tyres and what have you. Buying all the equipment to put the bikes together, and then, but I was always building bikes when I was a kid, like finding bikes in the street and doing customized bikes, choppers and what have you. And then over the years I've been sort of customizing bikes for people and sort of vintage bikes, restoring like 1930s rally or a rod bike, kind of pre First World War bikes even for people. So the bed is based on the design or engineering design of a bridge. Kind of like a big influence in my life was people like Brunel, amazing engineer who built many bridges, and so I've always been interested in that. I used to spend a lot of time in the engineering department in my dad's university in Africa and just hang out with the other students. I was 14 at the time and watch them doing all the various demonstrations of using bridge design and with storms and wind, and watch the professor explaining various interesting scenarios that bridges have to deal with, whether it's weather or you know, obviously the heat, the rain, the wind, and then there's tidal surges, you name it. The bicycle is a huge influence. The structure of this bed is kind of influenced by the bike. Bridge design, yeah. The car seat cover is a product development project based on hygiene for children. One of the most sort of disgustingly dirty environments that a child could sit in is the car seat, because all sorts of things go on it. And the V&A is a great place to go. Spent a lot of time there. My mother was a graphic designer, exhibition designer for the Geological Museum, which is now part of the Natural History Museum. So I've spent a lot of time in those museums, like wandering around. I mean, even after they're closed. I mean, when I was young, I could wander around. It was a bit like night in the museum, you know. I could go into the Natural History Museum from the Geological Museum and just wandered around, opening drawers, man, and it's like dinosaur bones and stuff, you know. It's like 11-year-old kid, right? Or you just had the museum to themselves. So I think the V&A is a great. That whole area actually, Science Museum, they're good. And then you can walk up to the Serpentine Gallery, which is great. If I don't really know what to do and I want to meet my mum, I might go and meet her at the Serpentine. Have coffee, and then we go and see something at the gallery, the Serpentine Gallery, and then we'll walk right down to Exhibition Road and pop in to any one of the museums or galleries that are in that area. You could spend a week in that area and still not see it all. You know, South Ken, and there's like lots to do. Yeah. And on a nice sunny day, especially in the park, maybe do some rowing on the Serpentine, which you can do in the summer.
Yeah.
Or some rollerblading, which we do the kids down on the Broad Walk by the Serpentine Lake.
Yeah.
I skateboard sometimes.
Oh, you
Take
skate?
my skateboards and go down there. And then we've got inline skates as well, so we do that. The V&A, if you've got the time, see if you can go to the library, you know, and you can just get this incredible reference material. Especially if you're an artist. I mean, most of it's online now, but you know, it's still a great environment to be. You know, and there's some great exhibitions on all the time.